Good day. Today we're going to discuss about sequential of lights with the use of microcontroller. Okay, here are the tools and materials, including the components and the consumables that we are needed for this experiment or circuitry project. Tools and materials, we need a multi-tester to test all the components that we are needed if they are on a good condition or they are working. Okay, next is we need a 5 volts direct current power supply. We use this to energize our circuit during testing. Next is long nose pliers. Long nose pliers will be used for holding, gripping, or uh, holding and gripping to insert the jumper wires uh, into the breadboard. Okay, so we use long nose pliers to hold or grip jumper wires to insert into the breadboard. Okay, next is wire stripper. Wire stripper is used to remove the insulation or the insulator of wire. The wire that we're going to use is a solid wire as a jumper wire. So there are also ready-made or manufactured jumper wires. So if you have a jumper wires, we don't have to make our own wire. Okay. Next is breadboard. Breadboard is a device used for prototyping or for making a temporary connection. Okay, no components that we are needed are the consumables. We have a 555 IC. This is the timer IC that will make the pulse send to 4017 IC. 4017 IC is the logic IC or the switching IC. And other components that supports the timer IC, 47 kilo ohms, and for the output of 4017, we have 8.2 kilo ohms resistor. And then we also have a signal diode. The signal will pass through this diode 1N4148. Then will be amplified. The signal will be amplified by this fast switching transistor 9013. This is an NPN type transistor. Next is light emitting diode or LED. These LEDs will be the representation of light, sequential or sequence of light or the running light. Okay. Next is 1 microfarad 50 volts electrolytic capacitor. This capacitor has a polarity, take note of that. And then we have 103 ceramic capacitor. This ceramic capacitor has no polarity. Then jumper wires. Okay, as I've said a while ago, that breadboard is a device used for prototype or temporary connection. So before we proceed to the actual or we make a printed circuit board, we test first the components or the circuit if it is really working by the use of this device, this breadboard. Excuse me. Okay, so what is inside the breadboard? Inside the breadboard, it has a metal rail clip used for vertical and horizontal connection. So this This is the metal rail clip. This is the vertical rail clips. So they are separated into each other. So there are rails vertically. Okay. And there are also rails horizontally. This part. Okay. So one of that horizontal rail is for the positive and negative. Some breadboards has an indicator of positive color red and negative color black or blue. But in some case, there are no indicators. So it is up to you on how are you going to utilize the breadboard, or which rail are you going to use as the positive or the negative. Okay, so again, the horizontal, two horizontal rails, dalawa lang po makikita nyo dyan sa kabila at dito din sa kabila. Yun po ay para sa positive and negative, meaning those are intended for the supply. And the vertical rails are used for the terminals of the components. So they have individual connection for each pin, like IC. Okay, so it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes on the top of the breadboard and 5 clips underneath the holes. Okay, those 5 clips or holes are interconnected to each other. What do you mean by interconnected? They are connected, they are shorted to each other. Okay, hindi lang po sila shorted doon sa susunod na rail, sa susunod na rails. Okay? So yun po ang laman ng breadboard. So as you see here, they are shorted here. Okay? Pero yung papunta doon ay hindi po shorted. Ang shorted lang dyan na papunta doon ay yung positive and negative. Okay po? Okay, so yan. This is the connection of metal rail inside the breadboard. Blue rail. Okay, so kanina sabi ko, they are interconnected to each other from for the horizontal. Okay po? Horizontal. Horizontal is for the supply, positive and negative. So take a look for this illustration. If this is your breadboard, horizontal view, we have a straight line color blue, and it has rails 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes each rail, and they are interconnected to another rails. Except other breadboards, mayroon pong cut doon sa gitna, and we need to put a jumper wire dito sa part na to. Minsan may roon dyan na putol. Okay? But in some breadboard, straight po yung connection yan. Pero yung walang hindi continuous ang connection, we need to put a jumper wire para mag-connect siya doon sa dulo. Okay? So, dalawa lang po yan. Dalawa sa taas, dalawa sa baba, interconnected from one point to the end. And then, dito naman sa kabila, yung mga vertical, yung mga mayroong 5 holes, yun po yung mga rail clip na interconnected, 5 lang vertically. Okay? So, 5 holes vertically, 5 holes vertically, and so on. Hanggang dito din sa kabila. So, ibig sabihin, ang pins ng IC, pag nilagay natin dito, Ayan, pin 1, kunwari dito, pin 1 ng 555, pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, pin 5, pin 6, pin 7, pin 8. So, if you are going to observe, hindi every pin is not connected to each other kasi separated sila. Okay? Separated. Since they are separated, magkakaroon ka ng way para i-connect yun doon sa ibang components. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo masu-short yung pins ng mga ICs, even other components. So this is how we are going to use this breadboard. So that is why we discussed first about the parts and how to use this breadboard para madali po tayo makagawa ng running light. Okay po. So again, horizontal for the positive and negative supply and vertical for the components. So here we go to the schematic diagram of sequential of light. So I just draw this schematic so that we'll be able to easily identify the connection. And I put the symbols, then draw the actual component and what is that kind of component, or what do we call that component. So here is the symbol for variable resistor or a potentiometer, or sometimes we call this a volume control. The value is 100 kilo ohms potentiometer. And we have a ordinary resistor, fixed resistor. So by the way, variable resistor is not a fixed resistor. So from the word itself, the prefix, the vary or the varia is refers to it varies or it changes the value. So once you rotate the shafting of this potentiometer, it will change the value. And a fixed resistor has a fixed value. Like this one, this is a carbon type resistor. We have two values here: 47 kilo ohms for 555 and 8.2 kilo ohms for the output of 4017. So two different values of resistor: 47 kilo ohms and 8.2 kilo ohms resistor. Next is a signal diode. So do not be confused about Zener diode and signal diode. So this is not 1N4148 is not a Zener diode, but instead it is a signal diode. 1N4148, and then we have LED. So LED is also a diode. What is special to this kind of component? It emits light, umiilaw. But the same composition inside. So it has anode and cathode portion or part. So LED stands for light emitting diode. So yun yung magsaserve as indicator or output natin na nagra-running yung light or nagkakaroon ng sequential of lights. Next is electrolytic capacitor. Electrolytic capacitor, if you observe, it has a negative and positive terminal. So, be careful not to reverse the polarization. If it is the positive side, put it on the positive side, and if it is the negative side, put it on the negative side. Next is, by the way, the value of this electrolytic capacitor is 1 microfarad, 50 volts or 25 volts. Next is ceramic capacitor. The number or the value is 103. Ito pwede natin balik-balik rin because ceramic capacitor has no polarization. Next is NPN, or this type is a fast switching transistor, NPN type. The part number is, or the model number or the part number of this transistor is 9013. Excuse me. Okay. So I know if you are already familiar with the base, collector, and emitter of this transistor, but still I indicated the the pins or the terminals. At the middle is the base. Base is the input of signal. Collector, uh, collector is connected to the positive side, and emitter is connected to the negative side. Okay, these symbols, uh, wires connected. Once you saw, or once you saw or see a plus sign that has a dot on the middle, that is a wire connected. But if you see that the wire jump, that means wires not connected. And these are the symbols of IC, because we have two ICs, 555 and 4017, the timer IC and the logic IC. So if you see that there is a dot, that is the start of pin counting. So it starts here from 1, 2, 3, 8 to 8 up to 16. And here, it starts here to 4, 5 to 8. Okay, so that is how we are going to identify the pins of the IC. So just like here from the schematic, it illustrates here that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on up to 16. So we call these ICs in the circuit as microcontrollers because we are controlling the sequence of light. Okay, tips on how are we going to succeed in this schematic diagram. First is we need to learn first how to read this schematic diagram or how to interpret a technical drawing. Unahin na po muna natin, identify natin. Kapag nilagay na natin yung 555 and 4017, let us identify first the supply. Ano ba yung mga supply niya? 4 and 8 is connected to positive. Okay. Si 4017, 6 is connected to positive. Okay, let's go now to negative. Alin ba yung negative ni 555? Okay, 1 is connected to negative. Si 4017, ano ang connected sa negative? Pin 13 and pin 8 is connected to negative. Okay. Then, si potentiometer ay connected yung middle pin sa pin 6 and yung other pin ay connected sa pin 7 and pin 2. But sometimes, pwede naman i-short si pin 7 kay pin 2. Okay? But in this diagram, let us follow this connection para mas madali sa atin mapagana yung circuit. And then, sa pin number 7, nandoon si 47 kilo ohms which is connected to positive. So dito, kinunay ko lang siya sa pin 8 kasi sa pin 8, ang supply niya is positive. Okay, pwede mo rin siya i-connect sa pin 4 or pwede mo rin siyang i-connect directly sa positive, yung isang end ng 47 kilo ohms. So it's up to you kung paano mo siya i-connect doon sa breadboard. Okay. Si capacitor na 1 microfarad, connected ang negative sa negative, connected ang positive niya sa pin 2 ng 555. And si pin 5, connected ang isang pin ng 103 ceramic capacitor at ang isang pin ng 103 capacitor ay connected sa negative or the ground. And then, si pin 3 ay connected kasi siya yung output connected sa pin 14 ng 4017 logic IC. Okay. Let us test first the first phase. Okay, the first phase of this circuit, yung timer IC natin, i-test muna po natin. Let us test first. Maglagay tayo ng LED positive sa pin 3, output ng 555, and then negative ng LED sa negative. And then, i-energize muna natin si 555. Then, pihitin natin yung shafting ng or rotate natin yung shafting ng potentiometer, and let us see if the pulse will change. How frequent the pulse? Mabilis ba? Bumagal ba? So that is now the time delay or the pulse, meaning to say gumagana na yung 555 timer IC natin. Okay, so every time we rotate the shafting of the potentiometer and it changes the sequence or the pulse, ibig sabihin gumagana yung 555. That is now the time we proceed to the other connections of phase 2, which is the 4017 IC. Okay. Ilatag na natin yung transistors doon sa breadboard. Next is, unahin na natin si nauunang LED. Ang nauna daw ay output sa pin 3 output ng 4017 going to signal diode, papunta sa 8.2 kilo ohms resistor, papunta sa base ng transistor. And si transistor, ang emitter connected sa negative at yung positive niya ay connected sa LED going to positive. Okay? And then, i-energize natin muna. Okay? I-connect na natin si pin 3, tanggalin na natin yung LED doon natin na pang-test natin kanina. I-connect na si pin 3 sa pin 14. So, dapat, yung LED na yon na nandoon na sa output ng 4017, siya na rin yung magkakaroon ng pulse or magbi-blink na siya frequently. Depending upon or depende doon sa setting nyo sa potentiometer. And then, just repeat the procedure. Susunod dyan yung next na LED ay si pin 2, ang output. Then, again, just repeat the procedure, signal diode, resistor, transistor, LED. And next is pin 4, going to again to signal diode, resistor, transistor, LED. And so on hanggang maubos natin yung 6. And then, i-test na natin lahat. Dapat magkaroon siya ng sequence of light. Sunod-sunod ang pag-running. And then, dapat nakokontrol natin siya doon, depende sa speed. After that, kapag mayroong trouble, isa dyan hindi umilaw, you need to recheck your circuit. Mayroon ba ikaw na baliktad na diode? Mayroon ka bang na mali na connection or the jumper? Kasi breadboard yung gagamitin natin sa pag-wiring. So you need to really understand and learn how to interpret this technical drawing so that you'll be able to troubleshoot in times of defect or your circuit doesn't work well. Okay, so meron din ditong 56 kilo ohms or 50 rather I stand corrected, 56 ohms connected or nakaseries doon sa positive line. So that will serve as the current limiter, or will serve also as a protection for the entire circuit, or will serve as the fuse in the circuit. So it will observe the overload current, or if there is a short circuit, 56 ohms will absorb uh, the overcurrent. So iinit siya yung mag-absorb muna ng excess current bago pa masunog yung mga ICs natin. But pwede rin natin i-remove ito. We can eliminate this 56 ohms. But if you have 56 ohms, please put. Okay, so that will protect your entire circuit in times of short circuit. Okay, so I hope you understand well the connection or how to interpret this technical drawing. So let us proceed. This is the example, one of my example of connections. So you observe, kakaunti lang yung ginamit kong jumper wires kasi inutilize ko na yung terminal leads ng mga components. Okay. So do not imitate this circuit or do not copy this circuit. Okay? Kasi minsan sa picture like this one, iba ang tingin natin dito sa 47 kilo ohms sa 555. Nakatusok siya doon sa pin 7 and pin 8. Pero dito kung titingnan mo sa picture, nakatusok siya doon sa metal rail ng breadboard na wala namang connection. So kasi natatakpan yung terminal niya na nakakabit naman talaga siya doon sa pin 8, which is the positive line papunta doon sa pin 4. Okay. Let us observe na meron tayong na all the components are used. Yung mga nabanggit natin doon. And then dito sa breadboard, if you observe, ito po na line na to ay putol. So that is why I put jumper wire para magkaroon siya ng continuation doon sa isa pang rail, set of rail ng positive and negative para ma-accommodate din yung ibang components na hindi inabot ng rail na mayroong supply. Okay? So you observe here, red is for the positive horizontally. This rail is connected up to the end. Okay? And negative is also connected up to the end. And here, yung breadboard na ginamit ko ay walang indicator which is the positive and which is the negative. Walang color code. Walang red and walang black or blue. So what I did is, I identified it on my own. The red wire is a positive. So tinandaan ko lang itong nasa taas na rail na horizontal, yun yung positive. Yung isa na nasa baba ng isang horizontal, yun yung negative. Okay. Yung isang rail na nandoon naman sa taas, hindi ko na siya utilize kasi wala naman akong paggagamitan. Except kung maraming supplies or yung ibang LED nilagay ko sa kabila, I need to put another jumper para doon kung alin yung magiging positive and negative. So, ang ginawa ko dito para konti lang yung jumper ko, dito ko lang siya nilagay sa isang side. So, let us review. Based from the schematic diagram, sabi doon, supplyan muna natin si IC. The timer IC, which is the 555 and the 4017. So, negative is pin 1. Tama ba? Okay, correct. Nasa negative. Si pin 13 and 8. So, okay. 13 and 4017. 13 14, 15, 16, 7, no, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, this is the pin 13. Okay, kinonect ko siya sa pin 8. And then si pin 8 connected sa ground. Okay, correct. Supplyan naman natin si positive. Si 555 daw ay pin 8 and pin 4 are connected to positive. So, naglagay ako ng jumper. Pin 8, where's the mouse? Okay, pin 8 going to pin 4 and then kinonect ko si pin 4 sa positive line. Okay? So, mayroon na siyang supply. Si 4017 daw, ang supply niya ay number 16. Pin number 16 connected to positive. Okay, correct. Ngayon, the entire circuit or the entire ICs has now a supply. So, hindi na ako makakalimot dyan. Meron na siyang supply. Okay, unahin na muna natin si 555. So, pin 5 o 555, mayroon siyang ceramic. 103, connected daw sa ground. So, the easiest way para makonect ko siya sa ground, si 103, yung isa, tinusok ko doon sa pin 5, yung isa, tinusok ko doon sa pin 1. Kasi ground naman si pin 1. So, that is the accessible way para mas madali ko siyang maitusok doon or malagyan ko siya ng ground. Next is si 47 kilo ohms connected sa pin 7 at yung isang pin ng 47 kilo ohms ay connected sa positive. Ang pinaka-easiest way na makakuha ako ng positive line, yung pin 8, mas malapit sa kanya. So, nilagay ko yung isang pin ng or terminal ng 47 kilo ohms sa pin 7 and then yung isa sa pin 8 kasi positive yung pin 8. Okay, next is si capacitor na electrolytic. Ang negative niya nagka-connect sa pin 1, ang positive nagka-connect sa pin 2. Sa potentiometer, yung gitna ng potentiometer ay kinonect ko sa pin 6. Yung isang pin sa gilid naka-connect sa pin 7. Okay, ito yon. Yung isa na nasa gilid naka-connect sa pin 2. So it's either ways kung alin nyo yung ma-connect doon. Kaya lang yung pihit nyo baka minsan pag nabaliktad, pag going to left ang pihit saka bumibilis, in which dapat going to right bago siya bumilis. And then kapag nilesen mo, dapat pagpapunta sa left, hihina siya. So, pwede naman baliktarin na lang ulit yung connection ng dalawang pin. But that is not critical. What is important is you can control the sequence of light. Or pwede rin si pin 6 ay i-connect i-short sa pin 2. But let us follow the schematic. Kasi that is already proven working. Okay, then sabi ko kanina i-test natin. Si pin 3, siya yung output ng pulse. So, pwede tayo maglagay dito ng LED going to negative to pin 3. Test natin ng LED kung iilaw na siya. Then, energize natin itong positive and negative ng 5 volts. Okay. Next to do is, yung IC nandoon na tayo. So, para magkaroon ng switch yung IC natin, lagyan natin ang 4070 ng 5 and 15 jumper. And then, yung output ng pin 3 ng 555, i-connect na natin sa pin 14 ng 4017, which is the input signal of 4017 IC. And then, yung LED connected sa positive, connected sa terminal ng transistor, and then connected sa base yung input ng 8.2 kilo ohms. Okay, then ang ka-partner nito ay saan na yung ka-partner nito? Pin 1 ay connected sa pin 2. let us see, 1, 2. Okay, here. Okay, ito siya. Pin 2. Pin 2 ng 4017 ay output papunta doon sa signal diode. And then walang connection. Take a look of that. Yung metal rail, walang connection. Dapat sila lang magka-connect dyan. Mag-met dyan yung terminal ng signal diode. Then terminal ng resistor. Then okay, this is the pin 2 is for LED number 2. Okay, so ito siya para dito 8.2 then transistor. Yung 1 natin ay connected sa pin 3. Okay, pin 3 papunta ng signal diode, papunta sa pin ng resistor, then sa base ng transistor, and then yung transistor, yung emitter connected sa emitter, yung positive, yung collector niya ay connected sa LED going to positive and so on. Just repeat the process hanggang magkaroon tayo ng sequence of light. Okay, so another tips on how to succeed in circuit making. Okay, first thing is learn how to read the schematic diagram. A while ago, I already discussed. Sabi ko, you must know how to interpret a technical drawing. Learn how to read the schematic diagram. Understand and interpret. Number 2, must be familiar with the components that has a polarity. What are the components that has a polarity? Diode, LED, IC, transistor, and electrolytic capacitor. Be careful po sa mga terminals at sa mga connections sa circuit. Kasi pag nabaliktad natin, we might damage the circuit, the components, and your circuit might not work. Doon ka magkakaroon ng problema. Number 3, must know how to use the breadboard. So that is why, before I introduce the schematic diagram of sequential of light or the use of microcontroller, I discussed first what is the internal connection or what is the internal parts of a breadboard or how to use the breadboard. So I introduced first before po kayo magsimula gumawa ng circuit na ito or project na ito. Okay, number 4. Review 3 times before to energize or test your circuit. You need to review 3 times. 3 times or more. Tama ba ang circuit? Tama ba ang connection ko? Tama ba yung mga may polarity? Tama ba yung distribution ng pin? Tama ba ito yung pagkakakonect ko? So check, review, and check. Hindi yung test lang ng test. I-review. If possible, gumamit ng tester, gamitan ng tester. Alin ba, saan ba part na wala ang supply? Baka itong resistor na ito ay open. Baka itong signal diode ko ay open. O baka itong transistor ko ay shorted or open. Ito bang LED ko ay pundido? You need to test. Gamitan ng tester. Kasi baka mamaya test kayo ng test, napagod na kayo, nawalan kayo ng gana gumawa ng circuit. You know class, the best reward in this circuit making is when you see that your circuit is working and it gives a sequence of light and you can now control the light, the sequence of light. So that is the best reward. Your hard work has already the output. Your hard work, you'll see now the evidence that you already utilized or use a microcontroller to make a sequence of light or to control the lights. And then, minsan may estudyante ako, Sir, hindi gumana yung circuit ko. Sir, paano na to? Kanina pa ako dito. I took almost 3 hours. Hindi ko pa rin napapagana. So, where's the error, class? It is, the error is occurred from you. You have the resources, you have the knowledge, you troubleshoot first. You review first your circuit. Saan ka ba nagkamali? Okay. Refer to the schematic diagram because your schematic diagram is your map para doon sa pag-create ng circuit. Okay? So, just like when you are traveling, before you go to your destination, you always take a look on your map. Okay? So that your map is your reference. Here, your schematic diagram is your reference, your map, para magkuha mo yung tamang connection. Okay? Next is focus on what you're doing. You need to make a focus on what you are doing. Kung wala kang focus, maya't maya, papabayaan mo, nakatiwangwang yung circuit mo. And then, after a few minutes or an hour, nakalimutan mo na, may tinanggal pala ako dun sa, ano na yon kasi hindi siya gumagana. Until, nalito ka, and then, hindi mo na nahanap yung connection na tama. Then, sasakit na yung ulo mo. So, have a focus. Okay? So, take time para gawin ito. And I hope so na mapagana po inyo class. And good luck. If you have a question, paki-PM na lang po ako sa Messenger or sa GC natin. So, that would be all for my discussion for today. Thank you, God bless, and good day to all of you.